Welcome to our Gary Sir's Law and Life program. Gary Sir, actually your upright and righteous image comes from your many years of service as a member of the RCMP in Canada. That's why you always give off such a positive vibe. Speaking of community service, which cities had you served in?
I was with the RCMP. First, I served in Richmond, then in the Richmond Detachment, Burnaby, Coquitlam, and Vancouver.
Oh, so basically you've worked all over the Greater Vancouver area.
I've worked in many cities across Greater Vancouver. The RCMP BC headquarters was there, but it moved to Surrey 10 years ago.
So, during your career, what left the deepest impression on you?
The deepest impression? I think it's the interactions with the public. When I say the public, you often meet people at the extremes, either the bad guys or the people making reports, especially those ones. You can really feel the helplessness of those reporting, whether it's a missing son, daughter, or parent, or even cases of domestic violence. Arriving at a cozy home, you wonder how such violence happens there. It's truly heartbreaking. You look at some nice families and wonder how they can have these problems. Their son used to do well in school, so how did he end up on the streets now? Turns out, it's because of drug addiction. It's really heartbreaking. So it's not just about one single case. Overall, I'd say it's a mix of sweet, sour, and bitter experiences. What I've gained the most from all this is, by communicating with the public, I get to understand what kind of problems are actually happening in society, and how the people affected really feel. That's why I always say I do my best to help them, because honestly, they're not bad people, they're victims too, right? So how to help them, that's what really matters.
Actually, I know that out there are a lot of stories circulating about Gary Sir helping the public. Good deeds and kind acts. Maybe you don't think it's a big deal, but actually, a lot of people remember it in their hearts. So we'd like to hear you share. Are there any incidents that still stand out in your mind up till now?
Actually, I have a lot of friends myself, and as you know, many times when police officers finish work, some of my colleagues will just turn off their phones. But I always keep my phone on. I still remember very clearly, there was this couple, and what happened was their son had run away from home. Of course, I asked them if this was the first time. I asked if he left because of an argument. I was off duty, but this was serious, so I said, "No, you must report it to the police now." Luckily, they found him quickly. Since I knew them, I went to find out what actually happened. Actually, the main thing was just playing on the phone and gaming, like.
Yeah, the problem of teenagers gaming is really serious.
I think we're talking about 12 or 13 years ago, and even back then it was already quite serious. So afterwards, as a middleman, not from a police perspective, but as a friend, I acted as a bridge between this couple and their son. I tried to find out the reasons behind it, to understand what was going on, and I also provided everyone with a really good solution. They referenced my suggestion, and after agreeing, they were really grateful. So actually, no case is too big or small, it's more about the sense of accomplishment you feel with each one.
Wow. So Gary Sir is not only a respected officer when he's on duty, but even in his free time, he spends a lot of effort and time helping the public. Stories like these really leave a deep impression on many people.
Actually, I think it's necessary, because I used to be a scout and did good deeds every day. Honestly, I feel like when I help others, I'm even happier myself, because that's where my sense of achievement comes from. And when I help others, I don't feel like I'm losing out on anything, so what's the big deal? That's why I think it's really worth it.
Right, and also, I once heard from a guy from Richmond. He was a teenager back then, now he's already middle-aged. He told me that back in the day, he knew Gary Sir because there was almost a fight or something like that. Maybe you don't even remember this incident, but actually, I really want to ask about how you handle these kinds of situations with teenagers. Yeah, like for example, those fighting incidents. Can you share a bit about that?
So actually, I joined the RCMP in 1995. I remember my very first posting was working in Richmond. At that time, I was in uniform, doing day shifts. I was stationed at Stephen, and during my lunch break, I received a top priority call, meaning it was something that had to be handled first.
Arrive soon.
It was super urgent. I arrived first after a radio report of a group with weapons at a secondary school ready to fight. I saw over 10 people armed. When I got there alone, I just had this impulse. I'd already called for backup and reported in. Seeing someone with a pole, I was actually really brave. In the end, I wondered if I should really have done that. I mean, of course, when I saw the weapons, I had reason to believe they might use them. So I drew my gun and ordered everyone to get down on their knees. Luckily, police cars came from all directions, and as a result, they were all.
Well, it wasn't a fight.
There was no fight, exactly. That principal was a white guy, and afterwards, I still saw him from time to time. Every time he saw me, he would tell his friends beside him, "This is Jackie Chan from Hong Kong." I said, "I'm not Jackie Chan, I didn't."
Damn, if it really turned into a fight, I think the consequences would have been unimaginable.
It was so upsetting and unexpected, but I'm just glad I settled everything and no one got hurt.
You really have to be capable yourself. Think about it. If it were someone else, maybe they really would have just let it be. But there's a problem. Honestly, these young people nowadays, they're really quite reckless about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's right. In the late 90s, Lee Chi-man and Cheon were involved, especially in extortion, intimidation, and gang recruitment. This triggered fights when disputes weren't settled. Luckily, it was controlled.
Yeah, actually, it's really rare to have some dedicated and capable police officers. They can use their integrity to suppress those unhealthy trends and evil influences. Yeah, so we're really grateful, you know. Back then, having Gary Sir around to maintain law and order in Richmond was something that gave a lot of Richmond residents a really good feeling. Yeah. Oh, that's great. So I want to ask, during your career with the RCMP, apart from communicating with the public, did you also have to coordinate with other government departments?
Yes, because police incidents aren't just for the police. They can involve the city's bylaw department or even the social welfare department. So it's often about coordination. For example, back in Richmond, it was quite interesting. There were these so-called illegal drinking venues. Basically, at night, people would go there to drink, you know, nightclubs and all that. So, we often had to coordinate with the city's bylaw department to crack down on these activities. And back then, even many citizens didn't really know much about the police force. Later, I teamed up with Fairchild TV to create Police Report. Each episode featured different police units. Understanding builds trust, right? This improved police-public relations, making things much easier.
That's really great, because you really need to be someone who puts your heart into it to do these kinds of things. So I feel, just like the general public, that I can sense that apart from his main duties, Gary Sir not only does an outstanding job, but you also do a lot of extra things.
Time can pass faster that way, right? That's fine.
Okay, that's really great. And I believe a lot of viewers also really want to know more about some behind-the-scenes stories of Gary Sir. So, we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, everyone.